Good evening. Good evening. Uh, I know it's 6:37 p.m. here in the great state of Texas, here in the United States. I know it's evening. It's night time in fellow brothers in Europe, and it's 1:37 p.m. in Ground Zero, and also in a neighboring country, La République de Cameroon. I want to take a moment to thank those who have the opportunity to watch this broadcast live from the great state of Texas here in the United States. I want to take a moment to thank the people of the United States for their continual effort, although that is not enough, to support and maintain peace and around the world. I listened to the U.S. Secretary of State, and in which he emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and security around the world. And when we see speech and we compare with what happened on the ground, there is a lot of discrepancy, and this discrepancy, that is what we bring out to the rest of the world to understand this discrepancy, because discrepancy is vital to uh, to substantiate the differences between message and exactly what is happening in the field. Uh, this is Comrade Funton Daniel speaking live here from the great state of Texas. And you all see the title, Ambazonian Wall of Independence. Southern Cameroon, as many of you may have known, or many may have not. Of course, when someone asks where are you originally from, someone when you call the word Cameroon, the word Cameroon immediately ignites someone just to think of La République du Cameroun. But however, that is not true in the case. In fact, Cameroon, as you all know, is made up of two separate entities. Cameroon, as you all know, is made up of two separate entities. You have the British colony, which is the southern Cameroon, and you have the French colony, that is La République du Cameroun. Some call West Cameroon, some call East Cameroon. Either or, they're all referring to two separate identical nations coming together. And they came together with good faith. You all listened to many of the leaders that have spoken about the question of Southern Cameroon. You know, they spoke because of the misrepresentations of the identity of the people of Southern Cameroon. And so because of that, so I listened to some of other reporters, like the CNN reporter, that says there is a civil war in Cameroon. Of course, that is how they misrepresent identity or misquote identity. In fact, there is no civil war. There is a war between two identical nations. La République on the other hand and Southern Cameroon on the other hand. Remember, there is a great distinction between these two identical nations. Southern Cameroon gained its independence in 1961. La République gained her own independence in 1960, equal with other nations like Nigeria and several other different nations. So when they both came together, they came together in good faith. And that is what they call gentleman agreement. Gentleman agreement was a simple and understanding between the people of Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroun. They came together in good faith for the common good of both nations, that the resources they generate will benefit both nations. And that is what they call a gentleman agreement. However, that was the understanding between the leaders of the Anglo-Saxon, but unfortunately, in La République, the Francophones, that it was not what they perceived. Instead, they were looking for means as a conquer territory, southern Cameroon. And this has been a very traumatic to the people of southern Cameroon since they were forced into union. In fact, the people of southern Cameroon did not want to become entangled with La République du Cameroun, despite every opposition from members of the southern Cameroon in the 50s and 60s questioned the validity and the judgment of the UK government, solely decided that the people of southern Cameroon must live with La République du Cameroun. It has been caused a ton of pains and suffering on the people of southern Cameroon since that decision was taken and forced the people of southern Cameroon to join La République du Cameroun. And since then, La République has, over the years, dismantled the relationship, that structure initially, bonding that brought the people together in what must have known the gentleman agreement. In 1972, part of that routing by the French began uprooting the structure of southern Cameroon, dismantled the entire structure of southern Cameroon. And finally, Paul Biya in 1984 signed a decree, finished abolishing the entire southern Cameroon and called La République du Cameroun. That is what the present name many people see as La République du Cameroun. And those with the current generation, they see it as La République du Cameroun. That is not true. That is an absolute lie. In 2016, not only 2016, the people of southern Cameroon, prior to those who initiate the relationship, Jungo Foncha, Tende Mona, in a all-AAC1, they both attended that meeting. The purpose was to reevaluate the relationship that coexists between the people of southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroun. That relationship was and they came with a memorandum in which they tabled, including the United Nations, La République du Cameroun. La République, it didn't occur to La République to think again whether they had to sit with the people of southern Cameroon and discuss their relationship. Instead, the all-Anglophone AAC2 took place in Bamenda. The leaders of the people, the leaders of the all-AAC2 were hunted by La République du Cameroun military. Instead of sitting on them and discuss the issue, the relationship that exists, instead they did it. Instead, they carried on military occupation. And some of them were hunted. Some of the leaders escaped. That did not give the Ambazonian quest for freedom. Freedom to live, freedom to govern, freedom to exist as a sovereign nation. So today, in 2016, the request were simple lawyers, magistrates, judges demonstrating, and school professors, teachers demonstrating, asking for the same fundamental questions. And yet, La République did not see as a need to sit and discuss the issues. Instead, military was their options, as it continued to persist till this present moment. France, as a colonial master of La République, the masterminder behind the occupation of southern Cameroon territory, because in 1970-something, a mineral deposit was discovered in southern Cameroon. That became a top priority of France to use La République as a middle person so that the resources of southern Cameroon can be uprooted and shipped to France so that they can enjoy for its citizens for living the life of colonial masters. The people of southern Cameroon, or the children of southern Cameroon, are living not even a piece of bread, which is $1 something, they can afford, despite the fact that all the 70% revenue generated from southern Cameroon fed the La République du Cameroun and French and France. Today, few days ago, or less than 72 hours, there is military weapon, as you see, La République military weapon, either shipped by France, are now being transported overnight to southern Cameroon territory to continue mount their occupation of southern Cameroon. It is painful watching this. It is painful seeing our citizens slaughtering. It is painful seeing our citizens, our sons and daughters, our mother, our relatives, our distant uncles, living in Nigeria, in a foreign country, while our territory are occupied by a foreign nation, La République du Cameroun, because we, the world community, want to satisfy and please the people of France. Let me bring this. You know, we want to please France because France is our ally. So France is our ally. We will have to tune to the dance according to their tune, irrespective of whether is it fairness, justice, veracity, doing good for the greatest number, doing good for the greatest number. It is painful. Watch France, a European nations, sponsoring what could be a military occupation of southern Cameroon through its colonial territory. Remember that in the voting in 1961, in which the United States voted to recognize the sovereignty of the people of southern Cameroon, France unified its all French colonies. France unified all its French colonies and voted against the southern Cameroon territory. Unfortunately, they were able to overcome those rallies and they were able to win, to have at least 62 or 64 members of the United Nations to support the sovereignty of southern Cameroon. And yet, up to date, many nations that voted had their independence, they are progressing, while the people of southern Cameroon are regressing because of the injustice we see from the UK government believing that the people of southern Cameroon can govern themselves. In fact, southern Cameroon had an independent government and the first democratic institution in West Africa, southern Cameroon. The first in West Africa to have elected a prime minister, transfer power from one elected prime minister to the next elected prime minister. First, Endele. Second, Foncha. And thirdly, Joa. Till 1967, when he was finally booted out by French complicity with La République du Cameroun. If our independence should have been recognized, we would not have drafted us into this. There is a great distinction between the Biafra and the people of southern Cameroon. Why the United Nations recognize that when people have when there is a sufficient evidence of persecution by a nation or its other subject, they have the right to petition to be recognized as a sovereign nation. That has happened, and the United Nations has dealt with that. But the people of southern Cameroon is not the same case with the Biafra. The Biafra, in 1960, when the United Nations recognized the statehood of Nigeria, the people of Biafra was part of Nigeria. Whereas in southern Cameroon, in 1960, when the United Nations recognized La République, the people of southern Cameroon wasn't part of La République. Whereas in 1961, when the United Nations recognized southern Cameroon, the La République wasn't part of southern Cameroon. It was a separate vote on behalf of the people of southern Cameroon for them to meet the criteria of the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV, which called for decolonization. It did not call for partial decolonization. I will expect the UK government to apologize to the people of southern Cameroon for the error they made on behalf of the people of southern Cameroon. As you saw the tanks that are being shipped overnight in southern Cameroon territory by the military wing of La République du Cameroun with the complicity of France's Defense Ministry and the President, Emmanuel Macron. As you see those tanks are being shipped, it could have been the weapon that was auctioned by the United Nations that have painted overnight and being shipped into southern Cameroon. The citizens of southern Cameroon are living in a nightmare because of this adversaries that are carrying on atrocity in Southern Cameroon territory. In fact, we can speak. Of course, they ignore us since we don't have power. But I urge the United States to do the right thing. The people of Southern Cameroon deserve their sovereignty to be recognized. They don't need you. Our citizens are living in Nigeria while the territory are being occupied by La République. In fact, the governor of Northwest, a French-occupied military governor or colonial governor, in Southern Cameroon, in Boya, is also being occupied by a French colonial governor that has been superimposed upon the Southern Cameroon territory. We believe in a fundamental democratic institution where the people elect its leadership and they have the choice to recount those votes should there be a possibility. And that has been existence in the Anglo-Saxon way of life. We are endowed by these principles. We dwell by these principles. We dwell by the liberty and freedom that people have a choice to decide who should be governed them and not be imposed by the colonial military. Dear Mr. Secretary, as I speak this evening, I'm speaking like former citizens of Southern Cameroon that have witnessed this atrocity being perpetrated by the colonial master France and his associate, La République du Cameroun, superimposed. La République du Cameroun, one may emphasize, has never demonstrated an elected leadership from one colonial support from France. As you can see, no democracy ever prevailed in all French colony. In fact, you saw what happened to Chad. When the president was being dethroned, France President Emmanuel Macron was the first to rush there to confirm who should be the next leader as a part of a fraudulent behavior to deprive the people from their own elected leadership. You can look from the differences between Anglo-Saxon way of life and those of French way of life. Of course, in Iraq, when the United States declared war in Iraq, when the United States got involved in the war in Iraq, United States is not still involved there fully. The people decide who should be elected. And United States is now back up and supporting whoever is the leadership. That is a form of dynamic system of government, despite the fact that the United States have a greater say. But they step back and watch how the Baghdad government make their decisions. And this has been an Anglo-Saxon way of life, UK and United States. Our people, we don't believe in the way that people are being remotely controlled. Dear Mr. Secretary, as I speak here, I speak with pain and suffering of our people that are undergoing by military invasion by the colonial, because our people are endowed by the French colonial habit. Mr. Secretary, our people need freedom. They need freedom to live. They need freedom to walk. Freedom to exercise their duty. Freedom to elect their leaders. Freedom to have that ability to choose who to be governed. And not superimpose appointed officials by decree who control every aspect of life of the people of Southern Cameroon. Fellow, dear Mr. Secretary, I am speaking this evening from the great state of Texas in pain and the suffering in how our people are endure those pain. I understand your policy that you recognize the statehood of Cameroon, but I disagree with your assessment. You cannot superimpose La République on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon. They have a choice to decide whether they need to have a habit of living together with La République and not superimpose. We believe in the value of democratic institutions. The French institution does not believe in democratic institutions. They believe in repressive. They practice the civil law system, which is not fundamental identical to the common law system and cannot be meshed together and forced upon the people of Southern Cameroon. As I speak this evening, I speak with pain and suffering of our people as they undergo through those suffering at night by the humiliation of a foreign nation, La République du Cameroun. This weaponry that they continue to ship into Southern Cameroon and carry on genocide and slaughtering. I urge you, Mr. Secretary, that recognizing the statehood of Southern Cameroon is a primordial important that the United States can do great for the greatest number. Dear Mr. Secretary, you may probably be sleeping. As you may be sleeping, of course, you may be off your duty. But our people are not off from their duty because they are being suffering from persecution. A persecution by which international communities superimpose those to the people of Southern Cameroon. Our common law system, our education system, our fundamental election democratic institution, we have been deprived. And yet, our people are not living in happily. They are living in tremendous pain. And that pain in suffering and dying in agony by invasion of a foreign nation, La République du Cameroun. We have excess surplus in terms of economic balance sheet as given to by the UK government during the British administering authority. In fact, the British government never supplied any. We had excess balance sheet in each financial year system. Southern Cameroon enjoyed those extra bonuses. So it didn't occur that the UK could finance the people of Southern Cameroon. The fact that they make the assessment that the people of Southern Cameroon can live independently, that's a false, misguided judgment by the UK government stating that we cannot govern ourselves. That was a disgusting statement made by the UK government that the people of Southern Cameroon can govern themselves. In fact, we had the most brilliant government in West Africa, as far as I know, as far as history is concerned. The first democratic elected officials in West Africa was Southern Cameroon, first Prime Minister Endele, the second Prime Minister Ngu Foncha, the third Prime Minister Joa. La République has not, since its creation in 1960, and even prior to, they have not demonstrated elected government change of power and leadership to the next democratic institution. But yet, they entrusted them more than the people of Southern Cameroon, despite the fact that the discipline of the people of Southern Cameroon is more fundamental than the discipline of La République du Cameroon. We share this pain and we continue to echo this pain. As your new ambassador and chargé de mission takes over, remember that the pain of our people has been enormous, and living with La République is the worst thing that has ever made on the people of this planet. We believe that a government elected should be represent exactly the tune of the people, and that the people have a choice to decide whether those individuals whom they call leader can be recalled. I remember here in the United States, several governors, city mayors have been recalled because the law provides that opportunity. I remember the governor of Florida that they made a recall. I don't know if it was Florida, but another state, which a recall election was made, although he succeeded to win the election. That is the democracy that is prevailing, that the people has the power to choose and to decide the fate of who is their leader. And we endure by these principles, but La République do not. We cannot be remotely controlled by foreign nations. Recognize the identity and the sovereign state of Southern Cameroon is a primordial fate that the United States must do. We cannot be remotely controlled, but we must feel the freedom to choose who to govern ourselves, Mr. Secretary. This is a letter written by the UK government, Foreign Secretary for African Affairs. They still echo the same sentiment that they recognize the integrity of La République du Cameroun. What are they referring to? Because of these false, misguided principles that are spreading by the government rather than speaking the truth. The people of Southern Cameroon need freedom, Mr. Secretary. They need freedom to live, freedom to choose, freedom to live in a home they call home, freedom to elect their representative whom they love, freedom to make decisions of themselves without being forced into a coalition. Dear Mr. Secretary, there are more hardware that are being shipped into Southern Cameroon as a means to suppress the people's voice. Recognize the statehood of Southern Cameroon is a vital principle that the United States must endure, must follow through, must respect, must do as. Remember, Mr. Secretary, United States fought against the UK government because taxation without a representation, that was the philosophy of this great leader of these great nations. They stood against the UK because there was not elected UK representative in the British Parliament. And why should they impose taxes on the United States? And the United States stood and fought. The people of Southern Cameroon is not exception from the leaders of the United States in those days. Imagine when this crisis erupted, La République Parliament vehemently refused for any discussion about the Southern Cameroon crisis to be debated in a parliament they claim to represent the people of all La République and Southern Cameroon. If they can vehemently refuse to any debate, then I don't foresee any future that we can be in a parliament to whom they claim represent every people of Southern Cameroon, and yet the discussion about Southern Cameroon crisis cannot be debated there. Then it doesn't worth it. So our people want to be at home, Mr. Secretary. And that secretary is Southern Cameroon Ambazonia. Recognize that it's a serious, not recognizing it's a serious impediment. I hope your administration is not going to transfer to the next United States administration. Let the ball stop here. Let's do good for the greatest number, Mr. Secretary. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because when we sit here in the United States and we watch our home being overrun by the tanker shipped by French into Southern Cameroon territory because of the mineral deposit in Southern Cameroon and the agricultural resources that are being generated and shipped to France to feed the people of France. So our people cannot even have a single loaf of bread to live on. But yet, the France are living in a surplus excess because we want to please our own allies. Dear Mr. Secretary, enough is enough. Our people deserve something better to live on themselves. I ask this in good faith for the people of Southern Cameroon in this evening. I end my speech here. Good night.